Perhaps this will give you a little perspective on the fact that I don't drink that heavily all the time, just sometimes. But I thought what I would do today is, I have spoken before a little bit about how it's made, and some of the ins and outs of what whiskey and distilled spirits are, how they look, and how we treat them. Ultimately, I have actually given classes. I have taught tasting classes or led tasting classes. And you can read anything you want, lots of books about how to appropriately taste and go through tastings and manage whiskey and wine for that matter. There's a lot to it. The reality is, at the end of the day, if you buy it, you drink it however you want. Right? But if you start getting into the intricacies of how whiskey is made and the various characteristics of it, you might want to start doing it a little different, get a little more refined with it. So I thought what I would do is just walk through a little bit about what some of those things are. When I sit down with a group of individuals, whether it's just for fun or I'm leading a tasting, I try to give them 3 different things to taste, 3 different whiskeys to taste, and depending upon what the focus is that day, start walking them through some of the various characteristics of it, so they can start identifying with their senses what those differences are. There's so many different whiskeys and so many different spirits, for that matter, out on the market. People are like, how in the world do you tell the difference? Well, how would you with wine? You just have to try it over time. You just get used to it, right? So, simply, in getting started, there's generally 4 things that you're always trying to look at or deal with when you're tasting whiskey. The color, the palate, of course, how that tastes on your tongue, the nose, how it smells, and then the finish when it's going down your throat. Usually you have 3 glasses in front of you, and usually 3 different kinds. I brought 1 glass. This is kind of your traditional tasting glass. It's a tulip style glass. Don't have to use it. Wine glasses work very well. The purpose is that you want the bowl that also has the opportunity to let the aromas work its way through the bowl. This way you also try and sniff it and taste it. And we'll go into that a little bit more. But the glass isn't critical. And usually what you want to do is you want to take a little bit. Now, I thought it wasn't kosher to bring any whiskey in. But I thought I'd get something that's colored like it, so I brought some apple juice. Usually the first thing you do is when you're getting ready to have a tasting, you take a little bit, just put a little bit at the bottom. See, it looks very much like it, so it works very well. That could probably freak a few people out. And usually you want to let it sit for a little bit, because that way the air kind of starts working with the whiskey and opens it up a little bit. Now, whiskey has a very high percentage of alcohol, and it can burn, especially when you drink it. But the first thing you generally want to do is start getting a perspective of what it looks like. So you kind of move it around and swirl it around. And people are like, why in the world do they do that? Well, swirling it helps to open up the aromas a little bit more. On top of that, you can let it hit the side of the glass, and then you can watch how it rolls down the side. If it rolls down the side, then they have what they call legs. If anybody's ever heard of that, it's usually, you can see little legs of the whiskey going down the side. Usually if it's very slow, it means it's probably been aged for a very long time. And if it goes pretty quick, it's generally lighter and probably hasn't been aged as long. And it just depends also on some of the aspects of what they've done to create the whiskey. So usually you'll take a look at it, you get a sense for the color. Some of them are very light. Irish whiskey tends to be much lighter. Malt, a little bit lighter. Scotch. Bourbon, of course, is generally very dark, much darker, because they're in charred barrels. And they age for a few years, and the sugars and the vanillas get in there. So once you've swirled it around a little bit, usually you take a whiff. Now, it's going to be very strong, so most of the time, if you're fairly new or you're a little hesitant, usually you just kind of smell it up top here, and you get some good stuff with it. If you're more bold, you just... and it might burn a little. Yes. But then you can start identifying what you smell. You know, is it fruity? Is it floral? Vanilla? Sugar? And then usually you want to take a sip, and you don't have to put your finger out like that either. But you take a sip, and it'll burn. You know, it's a high percentage of alcohol. But after you've done that and you've kind of processed what you've tasted, and of course you can have crackers or something to help wash that down. Usually the next thing is you take room temp water, and then you just put a little bit in, like so. which dilutes it a little bit more. And what that does is help kill some of that alcohol, I shouldn't say kill it, but it reduces some of that alcohol, and it further helps the aromas come out. So then, you can just go through the entire process again. You look at it, the color probably hasn't changed a whole lot. But if you smell it, you'd be surprised how things change with a little bit of wine. And then you taste it again, and it's probably a little more bearable to taste at that point. But then you start, and you can swish it in your mouth, you can stand that, and you just take in all the impact and just write everything down. And I normally have given a guide to the individuals that gives you an understanding of all the other aspects that make that up. How it's aged, the grains that are usually used to come up with it. And then ultimately, you just sit and enjoy it. But like I said, you can sip it and you can guzzle it however you want to. You can become a banshee and scream and yell and drink and run around the room all you want with it. However you feel like you want to enjoy your whiskey. At the end of the day, if you paid for the bottle, drink it however you want. Thank you very much.